live stream here. Today, we are going to be looking at the first, I would say, difficult lesson, which is going to be the player movement script. Up to this point, we've learned how to set up our Godot. We've learned how to make the world scene and save things. We've created a player that can move on a floor. But now I really want to take some time to look at that script that we just kind of pulled out of nowhere. Godot gave it to us, but Godot gave us that script because it wants to teach us how the game works through that script, how to code through that script. So we're going to look at that together here. So go with me to our player scene, and we can click on the player, this little icon here, which is the script. So we didn't look at the script last time. We just kind of created it and moved on. But this script here is the script that's given on our player movement. And it's what's working. So if we ran the game right now, this is what is making us able to do everything that's happening. We're able to move left and right. We're able to jump. We have gravity and all of these things. So that's really cool. But we want to actually figure out, how is it doing that? So we're going to go through this line by line. And really, like I said, this is the more difficult part. But if you can begin to understand this, then you can begin to do a lot of coding on your own. This is the fun part. The fun part's always the hard part, right? This is the magic. So let's look into this and look line by line. So again, you can come with me, or you can watch on your screen kind of what's going on here. And we'll be playing around with some numbers as we go to kind of see what the changes are when we change things. So the first one is this. It's the word extends. Extends character body 2D. In Godot, every script basically belongs to something. It inherits something. And in this case, what it's saying is that this script inherits everything that character body 2D has. And that's because the player is a character body 2D. The character body 2D is not just a random thing. It's made to do this. It's made to move. And so the reason why we use an engine is that the engine gives us all the building blocks that we need to make a game without us having to build it ourselves. We're kind of given the starting point, and we need to know what that starting point is. And so every time we make a script, it's going to extend whatever that particular type is. In this case, the type is a character body 2D. We can learn all about what the character body 2D is by looking it up. And you're going to do this all the time. Looking up in the documentation does not mean that you're bad. You should, and everybody does, look up all the time, what in the world is this thing that I'm doing? So let's look it up. This is the character body 2D, and it's got a lot of stuff in it. But it's got a lot of stuff because it's really useful. And understanding what the character body can do already without you having to code it yourself is going to save you a lot of time if you look at it. So basically, a character body 2D is a special class of physics bodies that are meant to be user-controlled or used by scripts. They're not affected by physics at all, but they affect other physics bodies in their path. If you want to use something that's only physics, you would use a different type of a different type of body. You use a rigid body. They are mainly used to provide high-level API to move objects with wall and slope detection. And in general, you're just going to want to use these for your characters, with user-controlled characters. Or maybe you'd want to use them for other things like enemies that also slide. So this one's pretty good. And it has all these properties. So you can call all of these automatically, and they already have been set up for you. So for example, we're going to see that the player has something called velocity. It already has this. We don't have to make up velocity. Because it's a character body 2D, it already has velocity. And the move and slide function automatically uses velocity in its function. So we don't have to make a whole function that figures out how to move our player. We already have all of that already because we're using character body 2D. Could you make this on your own? You could. You could start from the very beginning and make your own character from scratch, but you don't have to because Godot already did it for you. So when you know how to use the right type of node, you're basically using the cheat code that just gives you all the stuff you already need to do something. And so that's why it's really good to know, okay, this type of thing I want to do is going to best use this type of node that already exists. And the more that you play around with Godot, the more that you're going to kind of figure out what those things are. So again, the move and slide function, for example, it's got a lot of stuff. It talks about what it does, but basically it's going to move your player based on the velocity that you've been passing to it. And you get to decide what the velocity is, but you don't have to figure out how to actually move the player, even though we could write that ourselves. So that's what this is. And every time you make a script, it's going to extend something. In general, the more complex something is, the more specific it's going to do. So like, again, this is obviously going to be a player that's moving, but the world scene is just a node, 2D, and all it really has is position. It's not really that special. It just is like, I exist here. Okay, next, const. There are two main different types of variables. There are variables and there are constants. Now, a constant just is a variable that cannot change. So what we're saying is that the speed is going to be equal to 300, and there's no way to change speed. Speed will always be 300. If we tried to change speed, speed wouldn't change. And we could try, even in here, we could say, hey, set speed equal to 400. But the game would just say, no, you can't do that. It's a constant. It must be 300. So if we wanted to change it, we would change this to var. And now we'd say, okay, speed is equal to 300. But for now, we'll keep it as a constant, which means that it can't change. However, we could just change it here. This is where we declare our speed, and this is where we set its value. And we're saying, okay, we just never want to change it accidentally in the script. So let's look at this. So the base value is 300. So if we play our game, we'll see that our player moves, this fast, not very fast, kind of slow, actually. Like, again, it's kind of lazy, kind of boring. Maybe we want to go faster. So you know what? You're like, okay, we're going to set this to 600. We're going to double it. And now we're going to see that our player, yeah, he's moving a lot faster now, right? So that's what that speed variable does. We'll look later at how it's actually calculated. I'll set it back. And this is our jump. Now you're going to notice that jump is negative, and that's because the y direction is actually negative here. So in math class, right, y is up, or positive y is up. But in coding, it's actually reversed, because in the top left of your screen is 0, 0, and then it goes down. So the origin is in the top left of your screen. And so then 400 would actually be like 400 units down. So if you wanted to go up, you would go negative 400. So if we wanted to jump higher, we would just change this, for example, to 800. So let's double it, and we'll see that we just jump a lot higher now. Whee! Whee! So you can change those, and you can change kind of the feel of your game. We can move faster, we can move slower. The only thing is that we can't change this by scripting. We have to change it directly in our code. Okay, let's look at the next thing. And this is a very important one to look at. This is, again, a function that already exists. We don't have to create a function. We already have a function that exists called physics process, which is called every physics frame that will always run. And so basically every single frame or physics frame, the game is going to try to do this with your player. It passes in a delta, which is the time between this frame and the last physics frame. This is important in case your game ever lags. You won't be having any problem. The player will always move the same amount of space regardless of the lag between. Now, very unlikely that you're ever going to make a game that lags, but it's just good to note that that's what it does. So that's what the delta is. But in general, again, you can kind of skip that because you're probably not going to make ridiculously complicated games at this point. And the delta is a float, which is a type of variable, which we'll look at later. And it cannot pass anything. For now, again, we'll skip that for now. We'll talk about functions in the next one. Okay, so, and again, it's good in coding to tell what you're doing. So this is a comment. It says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to add our gravity to our velocity. So if we are not on the floor, so again, is on floor is a custom function that belongs to the character body 2D, and it returns true if the body is basically on the floor. Otherwise, it's false. So basically, if we are not on the floor, then, and again, this is how we do our if statements. We use the word if, and then we put our condition, and then we use the colon here. So if all of this passes out, then we're going to do this. Our velocity, which again is something that already exists, we didn't have to make var velocity because it already exists as a as something in our character body. We already have velocity in our character body over here. So we don't need to make it. We can just call it. And then we're going to do plus equals gravity and multiply by the delta. When we say plus equals, we're saying basically this. Plus equals means velocity equals velocity plus get gravity. But we can just cut that whole thing out by doing plus equals. So that just saves us a step there. But really, all plus equals means is that we take the thing and then we add it to this. So this basically means we're just going to get faster and faster and faster. If we made it like this, we're going to notice that we have a problem very quickly. We fall really slow because we need to add the gravity every single frame, right? And when you fall, you don't fall the same speed, right? This would just be saying whatever your gravity is, that's how fast you're going to fall. Nope, we need to accelerate. And so to do that, we just add plus. Okay, so that's handling our gravity. If we wanted no gravity, we could just take this out and then we'd have no gravity anymore. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so this one's all about jumping. If input, and this is a class that basically checks for if you're hitting buttons, and it has a bunch of properties already on it. Here's a method that we can call, or a function we can call, which is action just pressed? And here's the action. UI accept is the button space or enter. So basically, if you hit space or enter and you're on the floor, so again, notice this, if you just press the button, space or enter, and this thing is on the floor, then what are we going to do? We're going to take our velocity.y, which is our up and down velocity, and we are going to set it equal to the jump velocity. So whatever our velocity y was, which technically should be 0 because we're on the floor, we are now going to say, okay, it's now equal to negative 400. Okay, now this immediately might make us think of some things. First off, if we took out is on floor, what would happen? Can you tell me what would happen if we took out is on floor? I'll give you 5 seconds to think about it. Well, let's try it. So if we can comment out is on floor by hitting, by making it have the hashtag there and putting our then right here, we're going to notice that we can actually just jump forever now. We don't have to be on the floor. Now we kind of have like a Flappy Bird feel, right? So in the original script, we can only jump if we are on the floor, but we can just take that out and then we have a very different game, right? We can also do plus equals velocity, and we can take this out and then we can go really fast, which maybe is a bad thing, but we can really break the physics here. And now, however fast we spam plus, we can just fly away, right? Where before we were kind of limited. We're coming back down eventually. There we go. We were kind of limited at 400 or our velocity. So again, you can play around with these things and you'll see quite a big difference. Just small little differences make big differences. But here's what we got, right? This is how we fall and this is how we jump. Now, this one is how we move left and right. This is kind of a complicated way to do it. We could do it in an easier way, but he is going to declare a variable called direction, which is equal to either it's going to be -1, which is what happens if we hit UI left, 0, or no, it's only going to be -1 or +1. So there's only two possibilities. It's going to be -1 or +1. That's what get axis does. That means if we're not hitting left and we're not hitting right, it's not 0, it's actually nothing or null. So if direction exists, if it's not null, basically if you're pressing the button, then what are we going to do? We're going to set our x velocity, which is our left and right, equal to direction. So if we're hitting left, it's going to be -1 times speed. So our speed is 300. So that means our x velocity, which is our left and right velocity, is going to be -300, which means we're going to move to the left. And if we're hitting right, then it's going to be 1 times speed, And that means that we're going to move to the right. If we didn't hit anything, then basically what this does is it moves us slowly towards 0. So we're not going to snap to 0. We're going to kind of move to 0 a little bit slowly. So it's not going to force. It's going to feel a little bit more of like a glide. And then here's the magic function that just, now that we have set up our velocity, right? We have our velocity. We have our y velocity set if we jump. We're working with our x velocity. We can now move and slide, and we will actually do the movement. If we commented this out, then nothing is going to really happen. Even though all of our velocity is being calculated, we're not getting anything. We're not doing anything because we're not actually using the velocity. So yes, we have a velocity. We have to do something with it, and that's what the move and slide function does. So when we add back in the move and slide function, we'll see that our player moves now. Yay. Again, you can kind of tell if I let go, it kind of slowly moves to 0. Okay, and that is the player movement script in a little bit of a nutshell, kind of line by line, kind of slowly described here. You might have to watch this video a couple times, and I probably should make it multiple times too and really get really good at explaining this one. But if you understand what these things are and how they work and how you can play around with them and change things, what happens if you change this or did that, you have a really good little script here that will teach you a lot about coding. So I'd recommend taking some time and playing around with it. One thing I do want you to notice is that we could, for example, change the name of any of these to whatever we want, and it would still work. The name of our variables is not actually that important. We can name this something silly like, I don't know, I just type in random numbers or random letters, and we can just copy that and paste that in there, and it will still work, right? So the computer does not care what you name things. Well, I'm going to put it back to speed. You can name your functions, you can name your variables, your constants, whatever you want to name them. The computer doesn't care at all. We name them these things to help you, the human being, read them so that you know what they actually do. You're like, oh, this is speed, so you're going to use speed here. But again, you can name it apples, you can name it unicorns, you could name it, I don't know, my girlfriend, whatever you want, and it doesn't matter, is my point. So the thing that you need to think about is, what's the best name for something? What's going to help me look at that and know what it does, so that you can best look at your code later and be able to help yourself. So anyway, that is the player movement script. And in the next one, we're going to look at functions and making custom functions to do things.